Hello and welcome to the Spin 70 podcast. We are joined with a very special guest. You can introduce yourself.
My name is Alex Amchislavskiy.
I'm Yehuda Makowitz.
Shalom Makowitz. We kind of avoided talking to each other because we wanted to save the conversation for this podcast. I only remember you saying that you're very heavy in moderation.
A radical moderate.
You're a radical moderate. So try to explain that to us in your own way and how that helps you through Judaism. But before you do that, I just want to note that we are doing yet another Sukkot podcast, but this time inside a sukkah with pretzels, pickles, and McKellen's Islay malt, single malt whiskey. It's tad smoky, but it's good stuff. Thank you for bringing that stuff. Thank you for joining us. You can, for sure, just take it away.
Definitely. Chag Sameach to everybody.
Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. I'll drink to that.
So far, so good.
So the question is how radical moderation helps me kind of navigate my life, or
we can go with navigate your life, but I mean we could start with navigate your life. What I'm more curious is how do you use that towards your Judaism and your spirituality and all that stuff, because I'll tell you, coming from Israel, there's extremes in different places. Now, what's great about that is that you're also in a place where you're surrounded by so many different people, so you can kind of gauge where you want to be in a middle ground and you'd be okay, right? But when you come to America, it's either you're this or you're not. and the thing is that I'm a big believer in moderation, because I think that I have a theory that I think the 12 Shvatim nowadays come in the form of different sects of Judaism, and they all have their good and their bads. And I kind of make it my job to extract the goods and kind of discard the bads, because every extreme is going to have a bad. Like you have parents, right? Your parents have good qualities, your parents have bad qualities. As your parents' offspring, parents 2.0, right? Your job is to identify the good things that they gave you and try to work on the things that they gave you that may not have been as great, that you kind of have to make better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So that's what I'm interested in. And then once we get into a point where you can describe your moderation, then we can talk about how you live through moderation.
Right. I guess I think it all kind of starts with that.
Oops, I shut the tape.
Though, I definitely have normal days. I've also had a lot of extreme experiences in my life, and those have really informed how I see the world, how I interact with people.
Okay.
And that's part of where that moderation comes from, because I've seen how the two extremes can go different ways.
So if I may ask, can you identify a clear difference between the way you are a moderate as opposed to like whoever isn't a moderate?
Right.
Can you see that? Or
absolutely. I think maybe this is these days it's cliche already, but
maybe.
The way people use digital devices, it's just so drastic from when I was growing up.
Well, it's the same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually before we met you in the sukkah,
we went on a spirit walk.
We were discussing some stuff, and one thing that came up was how important dead time is.
Right.
And it's something that I've been thinking about ever since we had that discussion. Hopefully I'll be writing a blog post on it soon. But there. I don't know. We discussed your son's name is Zusha. We discussed that story of Reb Zusha. Did I tell you what I thought was the most interesting and most profound part of it?
No, tell me.
So, the story goes like this for whoever hasn't heard it. There's this guy who's having a lot of difficulty coping with his struggles in life, right? And so he goes to his Rebbe. I don't know. It's probably the Baal Shem Tov. If I had to guess, I don't remember the particulars of the story. But he goes to his Rebbe. His Rebbe tells him, go visit this guy, Reb Zusha. He has a really horrible life. His children died. His wife died. He's poor. He has boils all over his body. So if you want to cope with your life, you should learn how to cope from
Did I hear
someone-
that from you?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I was making sure.
You should learn how to cope from someone who's been coping. So this guy travels to Reb Zusha, and Reb Zusha asks him, why were you sent to see me? And he tells him, oh, because my Rebbe told me that you would help me understand how to deal with the struggles of my life. And Reb Zusha says to him, I don't know why the rabbi sent you to me. I've never had a hard day in my life. And the kid
So-
got the message.
You told the story well. I remember it just with a little bit. There's a little bit more of a twist there. The idea that this very wealthy and he has a big family, everything. You think this guy would be very happy. On the inside, he was suffering a little bit. He went to his rabbi. He said, "What do I do?" And he said, "Listen, I'm going to send you to this faraway village, and I want you to go to this rabbi there, and he's going to teach you how to overcome suffering." So he goes on the journey to the rabbi.
Right.
Nobody even knows who Reb Zusha is, and then as he knocks on the door, he walks in and he kind of sees the hovel situation you described, and then he asks Reb Zusha, I'm really suffering. Can you help me get out of this? And Reb Zusha's like, I have everything I need right here, and he just has this optimism and confidence with what he has already, even though to this rich man it seems to be nothing.
Right.
It's a character building story.
Right.
For sure.
That's
But I think the most important part of that story
Right.
is him traveling, like
The
the
journey.
only part that we don't hear about, which is him traveling to Reb Zusha and going, okay, I wonder what Reb Zusha's going to tell me. And then him finding out what Reb Zusha says, and then spending the entire journey back really internalizing.
Well, that's the ironic thing, actually, is that most people, especially when they live on the surface level, and they're not, whatever they're searching for is not a real thing. Like, clearly
Right.
what this guy in this story is searching for is not real. Right? He has everything he wants. Why am I not happy? Well, you're not happy because you don't appreciate what you have. That's what that's really about. Like if you were to take it to nowadays, like if someone were to like pay all this money to go see Tony Robbins to go change his life, his ideas as he's going there, he's like, my expectations are like, Tony Robbins, he's amazing, he's this big dude, he's gonna save my life, right? But how many people, like Tony Robbins has those events, and he has like 5,000 people there? How many people actually understand and internalize what he's doing?
Probably not.
Yeah, I would say about like 5% of the people.
Because, no, I mean, here's why I would
And I'm
say,
being very liberal with that 5%.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I would say probably none is because how many Tony Robbinses have come out of a Tony Robbins
Well, yeah,
event?
that's true. But the point, exactly, like that's the interesting thing is like I've listened to Tony Robbins many times. I will never go to his events because, well, I can't afford it. That's one. And two is because it just doesn't make sense because it's like a drug, right? So you go there, you get supercharged for 2 months, then you're back to being depressed. Why? Because you soaked up the atmosphere that he provided. You didn't listen to what he said. You know how many times I've heard what he said? Like 5 times, 10 times, and every time it's something different. I understand it in a different level. You understand things in layers. And I just, like, for example, we were talking about moderation, right? I was writing a blog post today about Sukkot, right? And my brother and I, when we were at Rabbi Wolf's house with you, we were like, oh my God, we do not take Sukkot seriously. So we thought to ourselves, like, okay, why don't we take Sukkot seriously? Well, okay, because we're tired. It's a long holidays, the mental and the emotional.
It requires a physical strain.
I mean, it requires a physical strain, but plus
Jews aren't good at building.
Plus, well, clearly not. This is a nice sukkah. But the point is, we're just not good at building it.
Yeah,
but what I'm
maybe.
saying is that like we have this mental and emotional drain from Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and now we're like, okay, now I gotta build something, and I have to sit in it, and there's bees during the day, and it's cold at night. This sucks. I want to go inside my house. And as I was writing this blog, I was thinking to myself, okay, so what is it about sukkahs? Like, I made a decision after going to Danny Wolf's sukkah, and he kind of explained, the 4 strings, they represent the fact that they don't waver, and it's more like a house, whereas the walls are wavering. And I'm like, God, our sukkah looks like a refugee, tent.
It's actually, it wouldn't be up to code in a refugee
No,
camp.
so what I thought about was okay, why is sukkah so important? And this kind of has something to do with moderation, is that what I like about holidays is the simplistic answer, because the simplistic answer is the smartest answer.
That
There's a
would
reason
be,
why.
Pshat, I guess.
No,
right?
yeah, pshat. There's a reason why. I think that children. It's important to listen to children. It's because children have no insecurities. They have no shame. They say whatever they want, and if you're
But they're
really,
authentic.
yeah,
Can
exactly.
I get one of those pickles, by the way?
Well, they're authentic, and they say
sure.
whatever they want, and if you're really listening, it's genial. You understand? Like, it's genial what they're saying, if you're actually truly listening, right? Because what are they doing? They're watching you. They're trying to be like you, and they're doing it in their own way, and they're not insecure about anything yet, right? So what did I realize? I was like, okay, so let me think about my Rosh Hashanah. Let me think about my Yom Kippur. I do mental preparation all the time because I want to be in the moment, because it's a mega spiritual high. It's like psychedelic, man. So that's what Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is like for me. But the point is, so like Rosh Hashanah is judgment. Yom Kippur is repentance, right? I actually recently just learned that the repentance part for the previous year is only by the Kol Nidre. After that, it's repentance towards next year.
Isn't it interesting that the judgment comes before the repentance?
No, that makes sense.
I mean,
But there's also the idea that Teshuvah existed before the whole world existed. On the other hand,
Yeah.
okay. Elaborate.
I heard this idea. I don't know where it's from, but the idea that, if we think about the world in terms of multiple universes, with every decision I could have gone left or right? Could have made the right decision, the wrong decision. Maybe there were multiple right decisions, multiple wrong decisions. But if we believe in an infinite God that's all-seeing and all-knowing,
Yeah.
that kind of interferes with the question of free will, right? Because how can we have a choice if what we're going to do is already known?
Right. Well, that has something to do with what I was going to say, was that
Well,
you have.
it's the question of determinism versus free will.
Right. But how does Teshuvah come in? Is that if we have an all-knowing and all-loving God that we believe in, that means that Teshuvah existed before we had a choice to make a mistake.
Yeah. So
Talk to me.
I mean, we're going to get into the weeds here, because one of the greatest, my greatest adversaries is the idea of determinism. I hate it as a concept.
I hear you.
And I actually
It can turn us into robots, maybe.
Yeah,
Not necessarily.
I mean, I had
No.
a really
Nope.
interesting.
I disagree.
I had a really interesting thought today about determinism, because I was listening to a book called "Thinking Fast and Slow" by Daniel Kahneman.
Right. He's the famous psychologist.
I think he's behavioral scientist, but
right.
maybe
He's won
Somewhat.
Nobel Prizes, though, right?
Yeah.
He's done like.
He's worked with Amos Tversky, who is a very
Right.
famous sociologist, psychologist. I don't know. He's very famous. I've heard his name about 1 million times with regard to social science. But he was talking about a behavioral economics study. He was talking about the founder of behavioral economics and the first study that he sort of put out there. And something occurred to me that statistics is really a really flawed way of looking at the world, because what you're doing is you're taking a sample of the population, let's say 100,000 people, and they all make a majority of X decision. But what you don't know is how many variables it took them to get to X decision, and whether or not that X decision can be replicated in a different place.
Actually, a perfect example of that is politics.
Okay.
Most everything about politics is statistical. It's not actual. It's not factual.
It's insanely hyperbolic.
Yeah.
Everything a politician says is a straw man argument. There's no nuance involved. They always sound like they know what they're talking about, when really, obviously they know what they're talking about. It's their job. But like, the way they break it down is ridiculously dumb.
And that's why we choose not to care.
Yeah, politics is stupid. You heard it here first. Pundits will only give you straw man arguments, and so will politicians. The truth is, life is way more complicated.
Just to bring it back, because you guys are like going down many rabbit holes, and that's not. We're talking about moderation, not rabbit holes.
Right.
So just to explain, because it's Sukkot.
Well, we can. The politics can be a good metaphor for this.
Yeah.
And maybe we want to. Let's not go too far down this rabbit hole, but this is an excellent example of where today people are just huddling in extremes, and it doesn't
perfect.
represent
I like that
any of
segue.
us as individuals.
Yeah.
Because somebody can, you put up all of these controversial issues. It could be abortion or gun rights or draft army or whatever it is. And not everybody needs to stand on one side or another. Somebody can be.
And who
we're more
says you need
nuanced.
an opinion on any of that stuff?
Right.
And who
Life
says
is
whoever's
already
giving
too
you
complicated.
who says whoever's giving you that opinion has actually a valid opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there is one thing that is interesting, striking. Today was a big, many thoughts day for me, because I was listening to a bunch of different things.
And you weren't having a good day.
And I wasn't having a good day.
We should have better days.
I mean,
Oh, mein Schkeif.
fine. But the good thing about the good thing about bad days is they actually make you think about things you don't want to think about typically, and that can be great. And this is a great instance of that. I think one of the problems we have today is that I was listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan and
Mark Norman.
thank you. They were talking about how much time we save with technology. Like, it used to be, like 15 years ago, if you wanted to communicate with somebody, you had to write them a letter, send the letter, and think about that. Like, the difference between sending a letter and sending a tweet is humongous. Like, you save yourself, like, what, 10 hours by sending a tweet instead of sending a letter. It's like insanely easy.
But we're talking
suddenly
about
get out there.
That's positive mindset. What does it have to do with moderation?
It's not necessarily positive. They were talking about how trolling.
Well, yeah.
The people who used to write letters are now the people who are trolling.
Yeah.
Because the amount of energy it took to write a letter is the same amount of energy it takes to run 5 Twitter accounts and destroy somebody on Twitter. Right? But the thing is, like, we have so much. We do so much more with our time than our parents did. But
And that's
at
not
the
always
same-
a good thing.
No, yeah.
Because
I
sometimes
think
we're just filling the time.
what it is it's overload. It's like an insane amount of overload.
So now this is a great way to describe moderation.
And what to do with that time.
Yeah, because you're digging too many rabbit holes right now.
No, I know. I was bringing it back. That's what it was a genius thing I was doing.
Yeah, well, Okay.
Well, I guess we can kind of, maybe is it a good idea to talk about some techniques when we're challenged with a situation, how to approach it, or
Well, it's possible. I mean, I could tell you how I approach Judaism with moderation.
let's hear it. Maybe that could be a good start.
I actually was trying to say it before, but it's okay. It's fine. I like the conversation. But I was trying to internalize, try to figure out why Sukkot should be important to me, because I recognize like if I don't care as much about Sukkot that I do Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I'm doing something wrong. Because it shows that if I'm only paying attention in one area, right, of my Judaism, it technically means I'm only paying attention in one area of myself, right? So I thought about it. And I was
There's
like,
a lot of symbols in Sukkot about moderation.
but the thing is that there's symbols in every. Oh, that's true. But the thing, well, actually, I want to hear about that because actually.
But you go. We'll go.
There's symbols in all holidays. There's like what we counted before. There's like 9 holidays, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
and if we take them,
I'm pretty sure.
and
I'm confident with 9.
it's only so if it's only 9 holidays, that's only 9 times a year that we just have to really focus and
yeah,
pay
but every
attention.
Jewish holiday is a week, because that's how we do it.
But it
So-
doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, that's how much time you need.
See, every Jewish holiday is a week. Imagine if every Jewish holiday was one day. No one would
Right,
ever
terrible.
learn the lesson. No one
Right.
would ever learn anything new.
we
because
need
it'd
it
be
to
like,
be a week because you need to soak in it a little bit
Mea
and
chos. Exactly.
absorb the ideas.
So as I was writing this blog post, I was thinking to myself, okay, what is it about Sukkot that I can kind of internalize? And then I took it to a very surface level. I took it to a very simplistic level. Not surface, it's very deep, but very simplistic. And I said, I first started off with saying everything, like kindness breeds, damn it, what's the word? Life is about being kind towards other people and helping other people. And how we can best do that is by being kind to ourselves and helping ourselves in order to have the capacity to help other people and be kind to others. And by identifying the fact that if I'm not taking certain holidays seriously, that means I'm not taking certain aspects of myself seriously. So I like I mentioned before, I have major mental preparation before Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I really try to soak in and live in the moment. Remember that. Someone had given me advice that I took. I mean, he was giving advice to everyone, but I wanted to take it in because every year I try to add to the mental preparation towards these incredibly important holidays. And basically what he said was Rabbi Akiva Stern, what he said is that you sit down and you have an honest, he says he has an honest conversation with his wife, but you sit down and you honestly think about things that you actually want to work on. And you write down 3 things on an index card and you carry it with you for Yom Kippur. So I did that. And I thought about what I wanted to write down. I wrote it down. But then I thought to myself, okay, so I'm now, Yom Kippur's over. I'm mentally and emotionally just drained because it's like, it's intense for me. It's an intense experience. So then I said, okay, so how can I look at Sukkot as being something that I could take seriously? So then I said, okay, well, let's look at the negative aspects of why I didn't like Sukkot to begin with. Not like Sukkot, but why I didn't take it seriously. I was like, it's cold outside. There's bees. I have to build this stupid thing, and I have to sit in it and eat in it. Right?
And the wind might knock it over.
And the wind might knock it over. And then on top of that, I have to take this lemon and this branch and shake it in all sorts of directions. But that's the thing that I got from Sukkot, is that whether you want to understand why we're doing these things is irrelevant. It's living in the moment of doing those things. It doesn't matter why you're doing it. The lesson that I learned was
kind of nice.
The lesson I learned was living in the moment. Why? Because every New Year, even non-Jewish people, New Year resolution, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. I'm going to read 100 books this year. No one ever does it. So what God did for us was that he created judgment, he created repentance, and then he created this wacko holiday that basically says, hey, you said you were going to do this. Now it's time to put it into action. Are you going to live in the moment? Because this is a weird holiday. Yeah, I don't know why you have to build this thing, but you got to live in the moment now. You have to shake the lulav. You have to eat in the sukkah, maybe sleep in it. And I know you don't want to do it, and that's why. And you said that's why you said Sukkot is supposed to be after Pesach, but it's after Yom Kippur because it's when the elements are changing. It's getting colder outside. There's bees. It's annoying. So
It would be
Just-
pleasant.
exactly.
Yeah, just
Exactly.
when things like the thing about making plans is you never plan for when things go wrong, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like if
You
you're gonna
can't.
write a book, right? You're gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna write for 2 hours every day. But what you don't think about is, oh, you have to take care of your kids. Oh, you have to run errands, right? Life gets hard.
Yeah, so basically
That's
what
very
Hashem is
funny. I like
doing,
that.
what Hashem is doing is he's giving you the chance to live on the moment, to hold yourself accountable, so that you can then hold yourself accountable to Hashem by the time Shmini Atzeret comes around, and you have to live in the moment because you have to be happy that we finished the Torah.
I love this idea of
And that's-
living in the moment.
And that's moderation in Judaism.
Right, right. What it really makes me think of is I was fortunate to lead a few birthright trips, and when I led my first one, it was back in the days of Talk and Save. You rented a phone,
Oh,
you had to
God.
get a SIM card, you plugged it in. It was a whole balagan, but you had to get minutes, and then you'd call your family or
It
your
was
friends
really
or whatever.
expensive too.
By the last trip, everybody's just, I don't know what happened to cell phone plans, but everybody just had their own plan. And that's when I started seeing the whole kvutza, the whole group. 40 people are seeing Israel, but looking at it through their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally missing the moment. Like they
Yeah.
couldn't put
Yeah.
it down. They
I was
had
actually
to keep
very fortunate to break the rules.
Yeah.
Everyone had to get a SIM card,
Right,
and I sort of stayed on the bus because I was trying to save my money.
right. But for you, it probably ended
By the
up
way,
being a benefit.
when I was
I
in,
couldn't contact anybody.
when I was in Machon Lev and the Talk and Save thing was like still the thing,
Yeah, I remember.
I couldn't afford it. So you know what I had? I
Those
had
cards.
No, even worse.
No.
I had an unlocked phone
Uh-huh.
and I just had a SIM card. And in Israel, incoming calls are free.
Interesting.
So whenever I wanted to call someone, I would call them, and they'd call me back.
Got it,
And I
yeah.
spent nothing.
All right. Well, people used to do that in the U.S. too. Collect call. I remember this.
Anyway, yeah. So I was very fortunate to be a cheapskate and break the rules. I actually found out that it was against the rules not to have a SIM card.
Because
Later.
of safety reasons.
Yeah.
But what'd you learn about living in the moment?
It was
I mean,
amazing.
I just disconnected from my phone. Unfortunately, I was in a group with people who were way younger than me.
Uh-huh.
So it was sort of like I brought a couple books with me on the bus, and I just sort of was to myself the entire trip. But I had a lot of time to think, and that was nice. And
Go ahead.
I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about having time to think. I don't think we really have time to think anymore.
No,
Right. It's
that's
a
why
big
Shabbos
problem.
is important.
Yeah, Shabbos. I was actually thinking.
And that's why the
Yeah.
holidays are a week long.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that on the way to work this morning. Like, Shabbos is a game changer. Like, it's a necessity. If you don't have Shabbos, or if you don't take Shabbos seriously, you are.
It's the way the Jewish people
Yeah.
flipped the script on the world.
Yeah.
And we said we're just not even playing this game
Yeah.
because we're going to prioritize things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah. I think Sukkot has a lot of symbols of moderation. I think maybe a lot of us have heard of these ideas, but, just you're talking about the lemon and the shaking, not to make lemonade, but you take the lulav and the etrog, and on Sukkot, what this means is this also represents the different kinds of Jews. And that even though that we're different, we huddle them all together and shake them all together, and we're going left, right, up, down, whatever.
Could you explain that one?
So what you do is you take this piece of citrus and these three palm frond and a willow, etc. And what you're doing, you're shaking them together, but they represent different kinds of people. You have an etrog; it smells nice and tastes nice, and with the I kind of forget what the foliage, which one, but there's one that tastes nice but doesn't smell nice. There's one that smells nice but doesn't taste nice, and there's one that doesn't taste nice or smell nice.
So the arava would be the one that doesn't taste nice or smell nice.
Correct.
I believe the lulav would be taste nice but doesn't smell nice because
Exactly.
it's a date palm.
Right.
And then the hadassah,
It smells citrusy.
smells nice but doesn't taste nice.
And what this means is
estrog both.
the smelling and the tasting represents a person their I believe it represents their thoughts or their actions.
Oh, here's an interesting idea.
Go.
Not to cut you off, but here's an interesting idea. You have 3 of the species together
Right.
and 1 separate. Which one's the separate one? The one that smells nice and tastes nice.
Yeah.
Happiness.
So I have 2 possible ideas about this one. A, the idea is that the estrog doesn't exist in real life. It's not connected with everyone else. The other idea is that such a person would not be connected with everyone else.
Interesting. And this would be the person whose thoughts and actions are good.
Right.
Or I forget if it's knowledge and action.
It's thoughts and actions.
Thoughts and
Yeah.
right.
That's really interesting. I never knew that. I mean, I never even
But
thought of it
please
that way.
continue your
But I like what you
Yeah.
said, that that really good person is to the side and separate to the side. But in Judaism, we say, no, you come back here with
And you
the rest
bring
of
it
the
together.
chevra and lighten them. And
I
you
mean,
shake them all
Because
together.
it's kind of representing that there's bitterness in this world, and that the estro kind of represents the good side of every person and what they could bring. And if you bring the two,
It's our potential.
right? And it's symbolic in the sense that if you
Right.
bring the two together, it can make something beautiful. It can make thoughts that are beautiful. It's actually that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like simple.
So
stuff.
the Devar Torah I was going to tell you the other night
Let's hear it.
is along these lines. Sorry, that was terrible timing.
It's really tactless.
Okay.
So basically, that's him in a nutshell.
Okay.
I'm gonna take one of these.
So, the first day of Sukkot, I was really struggling to figure out how to shake the lulav and esrog properly.
Oh,
From your perspective.
It's a cucumber, Shalom.
I was just curious. I don't know. It's a
All right.
pickle.
Yeah, maybe it's mazinas.
No, it was shahakal.
So I was really struggling with shaking the lulav and esrog during Hollow because I was messed up about the order. I was like, wait, there are more moves than there are words. How does
I don't think
this
the
work?
moves matter, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just shut up.
Okay.
No, I was like, so I asked I asked one person 5 times because he was giving me terrible directions. I was like, okay, so it's right, left, forward, but that's not, I don't know, I was doing bad math. Anyway, while I was figuring it out, I kind of had this weird idea. And I was like, okay, so the Arba Minim represent all different kinds of Jews.
That's what he said.
Right. And you're going in different directions. The only time you're not supposed to move the lulav and esrog is when you say Hashem's name. So, and what are the words? The words are Hodu Hashem Kitov Kilam Chasto and Ana Hashem Ashiana Ana Hashem Aslichana. You want to translate for us?
No, just
Okay. The first one is
Just Google hollow.
Yeah, the first one is all the things that you do good are awesome, and the other one is we believe in you, right? And all the other words are, so during Hodu, when you say all the good things that you're doing, you move in different directions. So I had this interesting idea that you have all kinds of Jews. Some go this way, some go that way, like the religious, the non-religious, the whatever. Some of them are united in certain causes, but not united in principles. And some who are united in principles are united in different causes. You have the one who goes forward and the one who goes back. The one who goes back is in direct conflict with the one who goes forward. And yet this holiday is all about togetherness, right? And the one time
Couldn't you say we're all going back together, going forward together? No?
I would not say that.
Interesting.
The one time we don't move is when we say Hashem, right? Hodu Hashem Ki Tov. The idea being that maybe you need that guy pushing against you in order for you to really push hard enough to actually accomplish what you need to accomplish. But you shouldn't forget that Hashem put him there to push against you, and you shouldn't hate him for it. I actually told a friend this right after I thought about it, and he's just started a Chalav Yisrael dairy company, and he has a direct rival. He's like, "Are you trying to tell me something?" I'm like, "What are you saying?" He's like, I have a competitor, and I hate his guts." And I'm like, "Yeah," and an accountant. All right, yeah, and I was like, "Yeah, you gotta love him." That's pretty much it.
This is what you were saying is really reminding me of actually one of the biggest lessons I've learned in terms of moderation. When you were talking about the idea how you need somebody to push you back so you can push forward. You need someone to push right, to push left. It's like this it's this cosmic dance, we can say, this global, it's the Jewish people dancing for thousands of years together, not just physically, but like emotionally, spiritually, mentally, we can say. One of the biggest lessons I learned, and I struggled with this for a while, because I would see people who maybe I really looked up to them, or it was somebody in my family or something like that, but I saw them doing the wrong thing. And that didn't jive with the narrative I was telling myself that, oh, this person in this position, I need to trust and love them and respect them. And that's when I learned one of these lessons, is that from a lot of people you can learn what to do, and from a lot of people you learn what not to do.
I like that a lot.
That's beautiful.
Man,
That's so important.
Can I ask you a question? Because I'm also heavy in moderation. How can you identify what the wrong thing is?
It's really, sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you just kind of feel it in your liver. You're just like, this is wrong. You know, and especially when I was little, and you were talking about the innocence of childhood earlier. You're just young, and you can tell something is wrong.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
just kind of freeze up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, because I would always granted, we've all been through different walks of life, but whenever I would identify something as wrong, I would immediately question myself and be like, wait a second, but who am I to say that that's wrong? You know what I mean? Because here we're talking about Judaism. You know, we're not talking about anything blatantly bad.
Is that a question, or are you going somewhere?
I mean, I'm asking him. I'm not.
I mean, I have an answer.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll bounce it back and forth.
Okay, go ahead.
So here's the thing: everyone has a different perspective on life, and you may notice something that X person who's doing the wrong thing doesn't notice.
Yeah, but X person thinks he's doing the right thing.
Yeah,
who the hell am I to tell?
He doesn't notice that he's doing the wrong thing. The fact that you notice it is the extra thing. Like I'll give you an example. A friend of mine one time told off an alcoholic for being an alcoholic. And I didn't like it, because I understand that it's a lot more complicated than telling someone. I know. I understand that it's a lot more complicated than telling someone that you need to stop drinking. What you really need to do is figure out how to cope with your issues, and that's easier said than done. And it's not
so instead of telling
necessarily
the person,
easy.
Instead of telling the person you should stop drinking, you should go over to the person and be like, "Hey, man,
what's going on?
Is everything okay?"
Yeah, exactly. But someone who doesn't understand that about alcoholics, right, is going to go, "You need to stop drinking. I'm telling you because I care about you." The alcoholic.
I see. So basically, what you're saying is that your perspective of life identified that
what
your
is
friend
wrong with that situation.
Right, your friend made the wrong judgment. Is that what you meant by that?
I might have missed a little nuance there. Can you ask the question one more time?
Okay, so basically, I would also, because I'm heavy in moderation myself, I would also identify, oh, that doesn't look right to me. We should do it X way. And then I would immediately question myself, say, but who am I to even say that? Maybe this person understands something on a different level than I do. Everyone has a different perspective. So how could you identify what's wrong? what he had said was that he saw a scenario in which someone drinks a lot of alcohol. He's definitely
abusing.
He's
He's not
abusing.
using,
He's
he's
abusing
abusing.
it. He's definitely an alcoholic. And instead of being sensitive to the search situation and saying, "Hey, man," putting a hand on his shoulder, saying, "Is everything okay? You want to talk about something?" Instead, he said, "Hey, maybe you should stop drinking," or something
Yeah,
like
it's like
that.
looking at this, treating the symptoms instead of the cause of the problem.
But when it comes to Judaism, like, I'll give you an example. In Israel, there's, like I said, there's extremism in all different directions, and you
we'll
could
have a
s-
proposition.
Okay, fine.
Maybe a good way to explore these issues is what about if we talk about some examples where Judaism can be radicalized,
Okay, I can give you an example.
and then we can see what does it mean Judaism and moderation.
Charedim.
That's a general statement.
That's a very broad, oversweeping
Yeah.
statement.
So, like, I'll tell
Please
you one thing that
specify
happens in
for
Israel
us.
that's a little crazy. Is that okay? So there's religious Jews. There's not religious Jews. There's modern religious Jews. There's whatever Jews, right? There's all
There's
different kinds.
everything in between.
Right.
Yeah.
And then every Shabbos, right, you have all these Haredim who have nothing better to do, protesting these soldiers who are protecting them or whatever.
Or going around at the non-kosher restaurants and yelling,
Yeah, something like that. So, like, that is, it's. I understand what you're doing. If I put myself,
But how is that making
It's
Shabbos
not
for you?
effective.
it's not.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that I understand what they're doing. I've processed it. I've put myself in their shoes. However, knowing what I know, being who I am, that's not the way to do it. Right? That's not the way to. If anything, if you're gonna sit there and yell at these people while they're enjoying their nice little meal on a Friday night at a restaurant,
hey, maybe
You're-
this is their version of keeping Shabbos.
maybe it's their version of Shabbat. That's also a good point. And B, by doing that, you're basically provoking them to continue their behavior.
Right.
You understand? And we're talking about grown adults who then are teaching their children to do the same thing, who will then teach their children to do the same thing. So, like, that's to be honest with you, that's what
By the way, have you ever seen the movie? What's the movie called?
Spiesen?
No, the one on
I'm
Netflix.
just guessing. Oh no, I don't want
one
to talk
of-
about that.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about that.
Check out-
That's too much.
Yeah.
Well, here,
I'm
look,
just
here's
gonna
a
tell
good,
them to
tr-
watch it.
transition.
Check out One of Us. It's an amazing flick.
This is actually an ancient issue because it goes back thousands of years.
Well, yeah, I agree.
The first terrorists in the Middle East were Jewish.
Yeah.
This was in the days of the Romans. They were called zealots, and they would the
Zealots.
Romans- zealot. We call them
Yeah.
zealots. They were by the Romans. They were called
We call them
Sicarii.
zealots. You call them zealots.
Zealot.
Where did you?
It depends if you listen to Black Alicious or not.
Is
That's,
that what it is?
But listen,
Zealots is.
well, it's
is-
the last word. Zealots. Anyways, that's another thing for another day. The Romans called them Sicarii, which means knives, because they would carry knives, these Jews, and as they were walking around in Jerusalem, they would try to take out Romans. The problem happened was when they got the Romans out of the city, but the Romans were besieging Jerusalem, these guys went and burnt the whole food supply that was stored that could have held them for so many more years.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
started killing other Jews. The zealousness went so far,
Yeah.
they were killing
Yeah.
their brothers and sisters. They
So-
killed the city.
So experiencing that in Israel is what sparked me to do moderation. I was doing moderation without like recognizing what I was doing because I was like headed in that direction, but I wasn't conscious of what I was doing.
Oh,
But-
you were heading to an extreme situation?
I mean, I've bounced between extreme situations,
I see.
but what I'm saying is like without recognizing it, what I realized I wanted was to be more moderate with things because then I saw that kind of behavior, and I thought to myself like that's not okay. Like maybe one day I'll become Haredi because I'll understand something on a certain level. That's a possibility, but that behavior is not okay, and I would question myself, and I constantly question myself. That's how, because I'm a growth-oriented individual. But I would question myself, and I would think about it, and I'd say, like, I don't like that behavior. What can I do to best exemplify proper behavior for myself as a person? I mean, that's generally what I was trying to say about my whole Sukkot thing. The revelation that I had about Sukkot is that is that kindness breeds a good life. Like, and the best way that you can represent yourself in this world is not about understanding the chagim and understanding things on the thumb dipping deep levels where no one's gonna understand what the hell you're saying, but at the end of the day, you're like, oh, you know, if I
Wow,
yeah, that was amazing. That was amazing. Because the
chacham,
thing is, like, if you don't, like, I guarantee you, half the people don't understand what that person's saying, but they're too embarrassed to say, I don't understand it. So if that's the case,
Or maybe they just don't want to embarrass him.
right? So if that's the case, I would say you start from an outer layer and you move in very slowly, incremental progress. One of my 3 things on my thing.
Yeah.
On
So
my,
I was learning with my
index card.
chavrusa the other day, and we were talking about Yesod, and like I had this like moment of realization that everything I do is Yesod. When I learn anything, when I read the parsha, it's okay. So what's the Yesod? And it was like it was a shocking moment for me for 2 reasons. One is, oh, so that's what I'm doing. And the other one was, Yesod is the second lowest of the Sfirot. So how do I move on from that? And my chavrusa sort of said, well, I mean, without the Yesod, you don't have a foundation, so it's probably the best place to start. But does that... I don't know why I said
don't know
that.
what the hell. I'm lost. Not gonna lie. Anyways, so that's what's. Hey, he's done. You have to cut him off. No more drinking for him.
No, I am done.
But you.
I will bring it back, I promise.
I hope so. But basically, what sparked my moderation, because I'm keep trying to talk about moderation, I'm trying to plug it in there. What sparked my moderation was the fact that I saw too many extremes and too many people doing things
Right.
subconsciously without checking themselves. You understand? Being a moderate person takes a lot of energy.
Right. So here's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
It's very contemplative, you're
You
saying.
gotta
Yeah.
start. You have to start with, what are we doing here, right? As
Yeah.
Jews, like as a Haredi who goes Shabbos, right?
Chavez.
Right. What are we doing here, right?
I think the politically correct way of saying is as a Haredi person. They're not
Well,
called Haredis.
We're getting at the idea is
The point
that
is that
this-
the Yesod is to get the guy to keep Shabbos.
Yeah.
But this Haredi person who is very passionate about Shabbat, and maybe we're saying they're not doing it in the right way, how could it be that their priorities got so out of whack that for the sake of Shabbat they're doing this to another person? This is where the moderation is so important. It's when things get twisted and the priorities are just out of whack. We're talking about the digital detox earlier. How can it be that a group of friends goes out these days and they're all sitting at a bar with a drink and looking at their phone and texting each other?
Oh.
What did they go out for?
Well, I mean, the
'cause they're
reason
bored.
they went out is because their parents told them that's how it's done, and they just don't understand how to do it.
I mean, I look at going. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. We're not gonna tackle that one. But I'm just saying that's like another rabbit hole. This is like a rabbit
No,
hole
like-
discussion.
No, I'm saying, like, how many times have you heard your
I
parents
no.
say, like,
I,
we went out
no,
with
no,
our friends,
no.
it was awesome.
No, we get it.
Oh, sorry.
We got it.
Sorry.
No, but the point is, yes, you're right, and it's about self-control.
Like, as a Jewish people, aren't there so many things that we should tackle before we have people running in the street chasing other Jews who aren't keeping Shabbat?
For sure. And would you actually? That's a good. I
Hey,
mean,
it's
yes, obviously.
check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes,
I love the
obviously.
hip-hop
What are
references.
those
Keep them
things?
coming.
Limp Bizkit. Who the hell are you to go running after a non-religious Jew if you yourself aren't a complete person?
Right.
The truth is, like it's not
That
about
person must have so many problems with themselves that this is
We're
what
all
they're
that
doing
person.
on their Shabbat.
See, that's the thing. We're all that person.
Yeah, we all have that. We all have that
read these
ability.
books. My brother and I read these books by Stephen Pressfield, War of Art, Turning Pro, Do the Work. It's all about resistance. It's all about being an amateur. Being an amateur is basically going and grabbing someone by the jacket, grabbing someone and saying, "Hey, do what I do." What do you mean, do what you do? Who the hell are you? It's really more about you have to you see. That's the reason why I like the revelation that I had with Sukkot. It's about living in the moment, because you have to. In order to be kind towards others, in order to help others, you need to be kind to yourself, and you need to help yourself. And the only way that people are going to want to follow any kind of thing that you do is by leading by example, is by working in silence and let the noise be your success. If you spend your time focusing on what other people are doing and not on what you're doing yourself, then you're not winning. And the truth is, I think that's the key component to moderation, and that's why it's so damn hard. Because the thing that I had thought about when I was thinking about how I don't take Sukkot seriously was, and I said it before, but I'm going to reiterate it because we're going to close things out. But was that the if I'm not taking, there's 9 holidays, give or take. If I'm not taking all 9 of those holidays seriously, then I'm not taking certain aspects of myself seriously. And therefore, I should spend the time internalizing and understanding why these holidays are important. Because it's not about the deep level of what the Rebbeim said, X, Y, and Z. That's not important to me. What's important to me is that how can I spend that time reflecting on a different aspect of who I am, and how can that best help me in this next coming year? The one thing, I'll tell you one thing interesting about Pesach. Pesach is a beautiful holiday. It brings its togetherness. The Haggadah is beautifully constructed in the sense where it helps you rekindle your relationship with God towards the end. That's why we say Hallel at the end. I'm not about the pshat and what's going on here and there, and it says in the Gemara that Pesach is, I don't care about that. What I care is about, I sit there and I do a mental prep before that holiday as well. And I sit at the Seder table, I sit there with my Haggadah and I try to find something, one thing that can help propel the betterment of my own future. And if I can do that, then I can lead by example. If I can lead by example, then I'm practicing moderation at its best form.
So I just had an interesting thought.
And that's why social media is bad, because envy.
Right, interesting. So
Which
I
had to do with what you said about us not having any time.
Beautiful. Yeah. So I'll bring it all together with this.
You can.
I had an interesting thought while you were going on and on and on.
I thought it was a good rant.
I thought it was nice.
Thank you.
And
Don't forget, I have a rant too.
okay.
Please. I can't wait
By
for
all
it.
means. By all means. We can even do a part 2 if necessary.
Yeah.
But I had an interesting thought. What is the propeller of extremes? I would suggest
Negativity?
it's your ego.
Oh, yeah. An ego is a success inhibitor.
Okay.
Quote.
But why?
Quote, ego is a success inhibitor. End quote, The Rock.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Why is it that is your ego that causes you to do extremes? So you say to someone, yeah, I like reading. But then, if I like reading, I better read more because I didn't. Maybe I don't like it enough, and maybe I was being a poser, and maybe like blah blah blah, this, that, and the other thing, or maybe I should really advocate it, right? Then all of a sudden you become this guy who's obsessed with it, and guess what? That's no longer moderation. In other words, moderation is the opposite of ego. If you hold your ego in check, if you say to yourself, okay, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Or am I just doing it because I keep telling people that I'm doing it?
It's deep.
Then you're really getting to the core of, okay, am I doing this in moderation? Or am I going to an extreme?
Yeah. יש לך משהו?
I just want to add a little bit to what you were saying earlier about the holidays. I think the Jewish tradition, it's very powerful how we built in these holidays all around the year with different energies and themes to buy us what you called this negative space. Is that what you called it? Negative space?
Oh, dead space.
To create
time,
dead
yeah.
time to think about what really matters. What's really interesting is part of Sukkot, there's this interesting holiday called Simchat Torah, which is, it's not in the Torah. It's not in the Talmud. It's called like an awakening from below. It's something the Jewish people wanted to do. It's a holiday they wanted to add to their annual cycle, and to create this opportunity to start and close things. It's a similar kind of energy to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that are kind of, like you said, Kol Nidre is ending things, and then you're starting to apologize
for what you're going to do later.
May do later.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to see how the Jewish people need this and want this, and are pushing for even more opportunities to really ask these questions, and that's all that we've been really doing for the past hour or whatever it has been. So
almost an hour.
So these are important questions to ask.
Absolutely. If everyone's done. I'm calling it. Just to close things out, my brother and I, we went on a trip to Budapest. It was the first, and we talk about Budapest all the time. So who's ever heard this, I'm sorry.
Feel free to roll your eyes.
Yeah.
That's what my brother's trying to say.
But we went to Budapest, and it was a very eye-opening experience for us.
So much fun, too.
It was the first vacation I took in 4 years. And we made a new rule for ourselves.
What did you like better, Buda or Pest?
They were
both pretty good, but
They
the
were
spas were in Pest, right?
I think they were in Buda.
They were in Buda.
The biggest lesson you learned?
Biggest lesson.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, but we came up with a rule. We have an entire list of rules that we are doing a whole segment on. But we have an entire list of rules, and we came up with a very important rule. My brother was talking about the ego being the success inhibitor. Right? Ego is what stops you from seeking your truest self. We spoke about that in another podcast. And you were talking about how we need to connect to Judaism in a way that helps us understand how we can best exemplify our own lives, right? And I kind of said that that's how we can lead by example. So in order for us to recognize how to best perform moderation within our lives, we came up with a rule called humble yourself before greatness, right? For example, my brother reads a lot of books, right? So he can say, oh, I'm a reader and I'm a writer, right? But if you say that, you're going to stop working on it, because then everyone knows that that's what you are. Right? And then you're gonna say,
or maybe that's all you work on.
Yeah, or maybe that's all you work on. And the idea is that you could
more.
Exactly. You could be X, Y, and Z, but you're not that, because we're never going to be that perfect being. And we have to constantly be working on that thing.
But simultaneously we have that potential.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to continuously work on those things. And in order for us, like, for example,
but never brag, because bragging is what's going to cause
exactly.
you.
Like for example, I exercise all the time, but I do a lot of things, but most of the things that I do, I don't consider myself an expert. Someone gives me, it's not a good thing, but if someone gives me a compliment, I say, I don't deserve that compliment, because I'm still working on it, and there's still more to learn. There's still more to do. Life doesn't end. The thing about moderation, which is most important, is the fact that people tend to they say, yeah, I did that. That's me. It's like, well, now that you're saying that out loud, it's no longer you.
Or it's all you are.
Yeah. And the point
You're
is
limiting yourself.
Exactly.
Sure.
So by humbling yourself before greatness, you could say, I do this, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I do this, and I need to continue to do this. And if I continue to do this, then I shall reach that point of where I want to go. And that's a hard place to be. I admire the fact that you strive for moderation, because it's a hard thing to do. And
There's so
I'm-
many things in the world pulling us.
Exactly. And there's so much, and that's the thing about these books. I guess we'll lend them to you when we're done with them, but that's the thing about these books is that resistance is the Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Hara is your best friend. Why is the Yetzer Hara your best friend? Because the Yetzer Hara is that little voice in your head that tells you, you're not good at that. What are you doing? Go do what everyone else is
go
doing.
watch Netflix. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So the idea is just to understand how to halt your ego. Your ego is important, but it's not always important. Halt your ego. Focus on who you need to be.
Your ego is important to say, yes, I am the kind of guy who should be doing this.
Yeah.
I really like this rule. Humble your ego before
Humble
greatness.
yourself before greatness.
Humble yourself. But by yourself, we mean ego.
No, it means whatever, because your
Humble
ego could
yourself
also
before
be...
greatness.
I mean, we
the
were
thing
talking
that
about
propels you forward.
we were talking about the story of Reb Zusha, which is basically a story. It's a parable about building character.
Yeah.
Building character, the only way you build character is by being humbled by something.
Right.
If you lived in poverty, you're humbled by how much having a little cup of water can be amazing. It's like the greatest thing ever. By living in poverty, you're humbled by the fact, like, oh my God, wow, I woke up this morning, I'm breathing air, I can see, I can hear.
There's a little bit of Torah I know you would love on this. It's some people have heard this. It's Reb Simcha Bunim of Pshischa.
Okay.
And in his pocket, he would carry in each pocket, it would be a little verse. And this directly addresses the whole ego question. And this was the Rebbe's reply.
Right, you said this. I heard this.
Remember we talked about this?
Yeah.
And after I shared this, with Shalom, that we decided, okay, so we're not talking anymore until we're doing the podcast.
But no, say the story,
listen,
please.
I want to share it. So he, Reb Simcha Bunim of Pshischa, he would have in each pocket a verse. And depending on how he was feeling that day, he would reach into a different pocket. If he was feeling haughty and full of ego, he would reach into one pocket and he would pull out a little verse that says, "You're nothing but dust and ashes," which is true. It's how we come in and how we go out. Then, when he was feeling down upon himself, he's worthless, he's nothing, he's having a terrible day. I know you said you had a terrible day earlier today. Pulls out of the other pocket, the whole world was made for you.
It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting. It's not a Jewish thing, but my brother made me read this book called Turn Your Pain Into Art. And it's about a girl who comes from a very, very strong Christian background, like what's it called? Like very devout Christian background. And she wanted to be a rock.
Evangelical.
Whatever it was.
Or
Like
maybe-
they were very religious. They were like Haredim for Christians.
Yeah.
So she wanted to be a rock star, and her parents were like on board, but they're like, this isn't going to be you, right? Turns out she became a rock star. She has a band, right? And she always wanted to get tattoos, but she never
She was scared they wouldn't bury her in a Jewish cemetery.
something like that. The
yeah.
point is, like, you put stuff on your arm, you're like, oh God, what did I put? Like, I have a smiley face. But the point is that I don't remember exactly what she did, but on one forearm she had something similar to that, and on the other forearm she had something similar. That way she would remind herself, like, oh, I'm being too egotistical. Okay, humble yourself. I'm being X. Okay,
That's the most Hasidic Christian story I've ever heard.
So the point is that I really like that, and it's so important because the only way that we can be ourselves is when we humble ourselves when we're getting too ahead of ourselves and
build ourselves up when we're getting too behind.
right. And the thing is that it's all incremental. Yeah, we're way done. We're way done. But it's all incremental progress. You have to be patient, you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to focus on the fact that it doesn't take what is it? What's that term? Rome wasn't built in a day. So on that note, this has been a very productive conversation. We went through certain rabbit holes here and there, but I like the fact how we were able to turn around and bring it full circle. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. Thank you, Yehuda.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to do this again for sure because this was a very good conversation. Hopefully it won't be an hour next time. But
What do you mean? An hour's great.
No, an hour is very good. That's true.
Yeah.
But we don't have like Joe Rogan traction to the point
Well,
where
Joe
an
Rogan
hour
does
is-
3 hours.
But
so I
he
think
has
we're
the
okay.
traction to do that in any sense. Chag Sameach,
Chag Sameach.
live in the moment.
Moadim l'simcha.
Moadim L'Simcha, live in the moment, and prepare yourself to finish the Torah, because God wants you to live in the moment. He wants you to be accountable for who you are, and in the end, He wants you to celebrate finishing the Torah so that we can start this year on a high note and be ready for the next year.
And just in case this doesn't go up until after Chag, just think of it as next year's preparation.
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's all good. It's preparation for 3 months from now.
Faux show.
Peace.
Peace.
Not exactly.
Did you get it?
I still got it. Just go. Okay, go ahead.